Hey, what's up guys? Back again with another video. This is the series where I show you how to build a instant segmentation model for soccer matches using V7. This is the third video of the 3-part mini-series, so if you didn't see the first two videos, then check out the description below to get to those. But anyways, welcome back everybody. Now I'm going to show you guys how to import a pre-annotated dataset into V7, and then how to train a model that can then start to do annotation for us. At the end of the video, I will show you guys how to use our newly trained model in our workflow to help us with the annotation process for new images. Hopefully you're excited for that, so let's get started. Now the first thing that we're going to do is import a pre-annotated dataset. Now obviously in the previous video I showed you guys how to annotate images that you import into your dataset or upload to your dataset using the awesome annotation tools provided by V7, but if we're actually going to train an instance segmentation model that does it effectively, we need to have a lot more data. And we usually want to have 100 instances of a particular class to train our model effectively, okay? So what I found is an online dataset that has soccer matches, like images of soccer matches of all the players on the field, and someone has gone ahead and pre-annotated it, meaning that all the players on the field have been annotated with a particular player class. You can find these datasets on the internet pretty easily. You just search up, soccer dataset, and there's some really great websites for downloading those for free. So here I've got one of those datasets, the soccer dataset. So within this folder, you have an annotations folder. So this is going to have basically a JSON file of all the different annotations for your dataset that you're trying to import. And then here you have the images folder, which is going to have all the image files that I told you about before. So here we have a bunch of images of the same game, but all from different angles and different frames. So it offers a good amount of variation for training the model, because the model, we want to give it a lot of different examples of particular images, right? So it knows how to segment players out of different types of images. But anyway, these are about 527 different images, and they're all pre-annotated, meaning that someone has gone in. Let me just open this one up here. Someone has gone in and annotated every player on the field for us, right? And that's really the great benefit of using a pre-annotated dataset from the internet that's open source, because you can save yourself a lot of time. But V7, of course, is a tool for professionals and for companies and teams of people who are trying to train models and annotate datasets and stuff like that. But you don't always have to import a dataset. You can do everything within V7 as we saw before. So the way that we're going to get our dataset into Darwin by V7 is by using the Darwin CLI tool. And the Darwin CLI is a tool that you can use on a terminal or a command line that allows you to do a bunch of things, such as importing a dataset, importing annotations for a dataset, exporting a dataset, exporting a model, stuff like that. So it's very powerful, really cool, easy to use, and they have great documentation on how to use it as well. So you can find all the information on how to do all that stuff on docs.v7labs.com. I'll have a link for this in the description below, so make sure to check it out there. So let's go ahead and install this tool, and then we're going to use it to import our dataset. Now the first thing that you need, as it says here, is Python. So as long as you have Python, you should be good to go. Make sure you have pretty much just a modern version of Python. So anyway, as long as you have Python, go to your terminal. You can open that up in Windows by typing terminal or just by opening up PowerShell. And then go ahead and type pip install darwin-py. There we go. And if you have any issues with that, reopen your terminal by using administrator mode, and you will have all the permissions you need. All right, cool. So I have it installed now. So what you want to do after installing it is authenticate so that the Darwin CLI on your computer knows who you are and it can connect to your Darwin account. Now, as it says here on the docs, all you have to do is type Darwin authenticate, but you also need an API key. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we'll go back to Darwin, go to settings, go to API keys, and then here you can create your API key for you, okay? So as you can see here, I have a bunch of keys already created, but let me show you guys how to create a new one. So go to new key, create new access key. We're just going to give it a name. So we're going to call it video tutorial. And then here we can specify all the permissions that we want to allow for that specific API key. If you're going to give this to a person that you don't want to have full access or something like that, then obviously you wouldn't give them all permissions. But since this is my account, I own the dataset and I want it to be able to do whatever it wants, I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these. So it has all the permissions it needs to do whatever it wants. So you can actually give it really fine-grained control over what permissions you want to allow, which is very nice. But anyway, I'm just going to check all those, click create. Cool. Make sure you copy that and put it somewhere safe. So close that. And then now we can go back to our terminal and do Darwin authenticate. And now it's going to ask for the API key, so paste that. Boom. Make Cody the default team. Well, yeah, Cody's my account on Darwin. You can also set up teams, which is, how you have a bunch of people that work for you and are part of your workflow and all that stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. Dataset directory, I'm going to leave it default. Boom, that's pretty easy. So there we go. Now, since we are authenticated, we should be able to do whatever we want to, import a dataset, import annotations, and stuff like that, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get this dataset that we have imported into our V7 dataset. So the easiest way that we can do that is actually going up here to add data, and then we can just copy these commands here. So image upload via CLI, that's just talking about the Darwin CLI. So we can go in and copy that command. You can also go to the docs like I showed you before to see more information on how to do stuff like that. Now you want to open up a command line again or a terminal, and then we want to paste this command. So boom. And now we want to change this command a little bit. So we have Darwin, dataset, push, and then Cody-soccer. So this is the name of our team and our dataset. So that's good. But here we want to change the path to our images, okay? So to get the path to our images, we can simply go here to the file manager, click here and copy that. So it's really easy within Windows. Just copy that right there. Then go back to here and paste that. Now, if you have a file path that has spaces in it, what you want to do is surround it in single quotes. So go to the front here and put a single quote and finish it off with a single quote as well. And that will make sure that any spaces or any weird characters do not mess up your file path whenever you're running the command, okay? But be careful, you also want to specify the folder where the images are. So if we go back here, we can see that the images are actually within the images folder. So we want to add that to our file path. So just add /images onto the end of that, okay? So go back here and do /images. And this is all you need to do to import just the images. We have to import the annotation separately. We're going to do that in a second. So anyway, click enter now, and it's going to start importing everything for you. There we go. So it's happening. It shows a really nice looking sort of animation here. So you can see the status of each upload for each image. This is about 512 images. So we want to give it a few minutes to do all that. So I will be back in 1 second. All right, it's completed now. All the images have been uploaded. It says all 512 files have been successfully uploaded. And if we go back to V7 to our dataset, we can see all the files are now here, all 512 of them. And they're all going to be in the new stage because they were just uploaded to the dataset. Pretty cool, right? So we can go ahead and open these images if we want to, just to manually annotate them or just check them out. Pretty much the exact same thing that we had before, but we're just going to go ahead and import all these annotations now. So go back to your dataset that you have on your computer, go to the annotations folder or wherever you have your annotations stored. And you can see here that I have a instances_default.json file. And this is just one particular way of storing annotations. There's different types of annotation formats. And this one happens to be the Cocoa format. So that's why it's in this JSON file. That's just how that format works. But if you have a different type of format, then Darwin might support it. So if we go back to here, the documentation, they have a little article on importing annotations with the CLI. And the supported formats include Darwin, Pascal VOC, Cocoa, CSV tag, CSV video tag, label box, super annotate, data loop, and NLFTI. So if you're familiar with any of these or the annotations that you have, include any of these, you can import them into your dataset on V7. So let's go ahead and do this now. So go back here, copy the file path, then go back to the terminal and run Darwin, dataset, import, and then the name of the dataset. So the team name Cody/soccer, which is the name of the dataset. And then now we want to say the format. So our format's Cocoa. And then now we give it the path to our annotations. So it's going to be / and then it's instances_default. You can press tab to autocomplete. And here we go. So we got Darwin, dataset, import, dataset name, annotation format, and then the file path to the annotations. So once we press enter here, it should automatically recognize the class that the annotations are using, and then create that class automatically inside of our dataset on Darwin, and then do the importation process. So it's a pretty easy thing if you just specify all the information correctly. If for some reason though you specify the format incorrectly, it will actually tell you the different formats, how to specify them. So Cocoa, data loop, CSV_tags, etc. So that's how you can easily see what information to provide there. But let's go back and change it to Cocoa and start this process. All right, 3, 2, 1, boom. So it says about to create the following classes, person, and it's a type of polygon. So it's just going to create a new polygon class on our dataset of the name person. We already have our player polygon class, but since we only have 1 or 2 images of that class that we created on our dataset currently, let's just go ahead and create this new person polygon class because there's over 500 examples of these. So it's not really a big deal if we just remove the one from the other 2. So let's go ahead and press Y for yes. So now just give that a few minutes to do everything it needs to do. So it's simply going to grab all the files that we have in our dataset and match them or attempt to match them to the annotations that we're trying to import. So it knows what it's doing, so I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, so it looks like the annotations have been imported. So let's go back to V7 now to see what do we have? And boom, nothing looks like it changed. But if we go here to the side, we can see that we have now two classes. We have the original player class that we had before, and then we now have a person class with 512, meaning that there's 512 images that use this class. Perfect. So let's go ahead and open one of these now. And it looks like nothing has been changed because it's still in the new stage, but if we open it up, we can see that all the players on the field have been given the person class, and they're annotated pretty much perfectly. So we didn't have to do any of that. It was done by someone else, and we just brought it in, and now we can go ahead and train a model. But now we want to move these imported images into the complete stage so that they can be used to train a model. At the same time, let's go ahead and get rid of our old player class that we had before. So I think if it'll let us, let's try deleting it. So delete. All right, it's gone. We have deleted it. So we can go back to our dataset now and see that there's only the person class being used in our dataset now. So that's perfect. Let's also go ahead and remove this one from the complete stage. This is the one that we had annotated with the player class. So since the player class is not deleted, we want to go ahead and remove this from the complete stage since it's no longer complete. So we'll move it back to annotate. Don't worry about that one for now. So let's go back to new here. And we're going to do Control A to select all of these, or you can go ahead and click all 512 of them if you want to. And now we want to go down here to stage and move them to the complete stage. So confirm, and now they should all be moved one by one to the complete stage. So give that a second depending on how much data you have. But now if we go to the quality tab, we can see that the quality of our data set is much more improved. We can see that our person polygon class is labeled as balanced, meaning that we have a lot of different examples that a model that we're going to train can use to learn how to label images of this class, using this class, right? So over 7,600 examples or instances of this class are provided, which is way more than the minimum of 100 that it recommends. So this is going to be perfect. So now with that, let's go and train a model, okay? So we're going to go to models, and I have a bunch of models here that I've worked with before and played with before, where we're going to go ahead and train a new one. So click train, and the first thing that we want to do is select the model type. Now we know that this is going to be a instance segmentation model, so we can go ahead and click instance segmentation, but it'll also give you more information on the side here about what that means. And now we want to give the model a name. Usually it's going to give you a random name, which is, nice, but we want to go ahead and give our model a cool name. So there we go. Our model is going to have that name, Soccer Tutorial Model, and we're going to click continue. And now we can specify what dataset we're going to train the model on, which is the soccer dataset. And now here you want to select, it's already selected, but here you're going to select all the different classes that you want your model to be trained with. So whenever the model runs and you give it an image, it's going to be able to segment parts of that image with those classes, right? But this one's the only one that we have, so it's automatically selected, and we're going to keep it selected, and we're going to click continue. And here's just going to tell you exactly how it's going to do this, which is pretty cool. So here's what's going to happen. It's going to use 410 files or images to train it. And then over here we have 10% of the images, or 51 images from our data set, will be used as the validation set. So as it's training the model, it's going to use these images to sort of verify with itself that it's actually working to assess the performance, as it says right here. And then finally, once the training and validation process is done, it's going to do something very similar to validation, which is it's going to use a test set, which is another 10% of our data set, another 51 images, and that's going to be used to see if it's actually working to get an accuracy score, okay? So it's another sort of like validation, like I said before, okay? So yeah, pretty cool. It breaks it down how it's going to actually train the model. Very nice. And that's also why it's important to have lots of data so that it can have a really big training set and then a decently sized validation and test set as well. But yeah, so we have 512 images. We're going to train an instance segmentation model using one class and then 7,600 instances of that class. Training time is going to be up to 2 hours. I know that's a little bit of time, but it's kind of a bummer that you have to wait, but of course it's well worth the wait to have a model trained for you, and you get to use pretty much right away once it's done. So that's okay. And then the training cost is 0.33 credits per minute, and these are just credits that you have on V7. So if you have V7 or get V7, you'll already know what these are. These are just the sort of currency within V7 that you can use to do stuff within V7, like train a model and such, okay? But anyway, let's go ahead and start training. So click start training and start training. And there we go. So our model has been added up here and it's scheduled. So that means that it's going to start training very soon. And then once it's done training, you'll actually get an email and stuff like that. So let's give it a minute Let's give it some time and we will be back and be able to play with it in just a minute. All right, so it looks like our model has been trained. As you can see here, there's now a start button. Before we start though, let's go ahead and check it out. So we're going to click this and we can see some more information about our model. And here we can see a bunch of information about our model. Up here we can also start it. You can see the stat here, the MAP, the mean average precision. Mine is 94.02%. But if we just scroll down here, we can see a really good indicator to know if your model is actually trained well or not. This is the loss function graph. So basically, as it says here, a well-learned model follows a sloped L shape approaching a flatter line. So it should start fairly high and then fall down pretty quickly, pretty exponentially, and slope out to a pretty flat line. And this L shape is how you know that the model that you've trained is actually trained well. So that if you feed it images, it should be able to label those images with the classes that you trained it on. Down here, you can also see some more information on what you can do with your new model. So this will allow you to use the model in different languages or situations. So in short, basically, whenever you train a model with V7, once it is done, you can use it within V7 if you want to. After starting it, you can feed images into it. But of course, it's more useful if you can use the model within an application that you're working on, right? So if whatever software you're building, if you could somehow use the model within that application, it's much more useful there a lot of the time. So one thing that V7 provides to you is a web API that allows you to feed images into your model. So here, if we just look at the Python one, we just simply have a URL to your model, and then you have this JSON body where you can pass in essentially the encoded image that you want to upload to that model. And then if you send that HTTP request, it should give you a response back with the annotations or the labels for the image that you fed it into. So in short, V7 provides that web API for your model so that you can interact with your model from any application as long as you can make an HTTP request, which is really cool. And so it's not limited to these different types of things here. You can do it via the CLI if you want to. You can use Python, Shell, JavaScript, Elixir, but you can use any language pretty much, okay? I'm not going to show you how to do this thing in particular, how to use the model using the API, but it's a pretty easy process. You can find these examples here as well as documentation, and I will have a video on it myself in the future. So stay tuned for that if you want to. But another way that I'm going to show you how you can use your model within V7 is by integrating it into your workflow. You may remember in part 1 of this little mini series that I showed you that the different ways you can configure your workflow. One of these stages that you can add to your workflow is a model stage, so that any data that comes into your dataset goes to the model stage, and then the model will attempt to label it. And then you can have that reviewed by somebody to make sure that the model did a good job or make any corrections or anything like that. And yeah, it just helps the process out basically. Pretty cool stuff. But before we do that, I'm going to show you guys how you can just test it out in a very simple way. So go up here, click Start, and here you can specify some more information. So the minimum number of servers for your model, just so it can handle more load. You also have these two options here, which are very cool. So start when invoked and then stop when idle. So this will save you money, save you credits. So whenever your model is not being used, it will go to idle mode. And then whenever it is used, it will turn back on if it's not already on, okay? So click Start. And now your model should start up. Just give it a second. We can go back here and see that it says starting. Pretty cool. You can also click Update to update this information that you specified the first time. And now the model's running. Great. So if we click it again, we can see that now we can upload an image or stream from webcam. So I'm going to use this image here. This one is, I believe the image I used at the beginning of this series anyway, but this one is unlabeled. So the model has never seen this image before, but if we feed it in, let's see if it's able to label all of the players on the field, okay? So we're going to simply drag and drop that image into here. And here's the result. Here we go. We can see that all of the players on the field have been labeled pretty much. We can zoom in to see more. We can see that this goalie here is not perfectly labeled, but at the same time, it's not very visible. So the fact that it was even able to label this goalie is pretty impressive, considering how few pixels are distinguishable from this image if you zoom in. But it's got everything else with pretty good accuracy. You can see here that these labels have percentages that indicate how sure the model is of its prediction. But yeah, we can see all these players here. They're labeled as persons because that is the class that we're using, the polygon class that we're using within our model. And if we had any other classes that our model was trained on, it would of course use those as well, but this is just the only one that we have right now. So we can pretty much take from this that the model is working as it's supposed to. We trained it well with enough data, which is perfect. You can also see that it gives you the model output here, which is something that would be given to you if you were using the API that I told you about before. So you would just take this information here. It's a big JSON object, essentially. You would take that and then have your application consume it, so you can grab the information about all these labels that it created for this image, okay? So you would just consume that from the response that you get back from the API, if that makes any sense. Okay, pretty awesome, right? Especially if this is your first time training a machine learning model. You've now trained a machine learning model for instance segmentation using V7. Pretty cool stuff. So let me go ahead and show you guys now how you can integrate that into your workflow. So if we go back to workflows, we go to our basic workflow that we created before. And here we can see that we have the very basic setup that we're going to sort of modify. So we're going to take this model stage and drag and drop it into our workflow. And now we want to choose a model so that anything that goes into this model stage, it will use that model to, try and annotate those images with, okay? So this is the new one that we have here, and it's also the one that's running. So we're going to connect that model to this model stage, and boom, we can see that it says this model outputs certain classes. What should they correspond to in this data set? We also have this option here, auto on/off. Okay, pretty cool. And yeah, so now we just want to move this to the side and hook it up. So we want to take this and move it to here. So that means that any new data that comes into our data set, if we move it to the next stage, it'll go into the model stage, and then the model will attempt to label the image, or label all the players in the image. And so after it comes out of the model, we want to move it to the review stage, not the annotate stage. So anytime the model reviews something, it's not going to automatically be completed. It's going to be reviewed by somebody so that they can make sure that the model did a good job. And then if the model does not do a good job and it gets rejected in the review stage, it's going to go back to the annotate stage so that someone can manually fix what the model did wrong, okay? And once the human is done doing their job, it's going to go back to the review stage for final approval to get to the complete stage. Let's say we have a big team of people and we don't want everything to always go through the model. You can also split up the data that comes from the data set using the sampling stage, so we can drag and drop sampling into here. And now we can sort of split the data as it comes into the sampling stage. So let's take this and we want to send it into the sampling stage. And now the sampling stage is going to split it 50-50. So 50% of the data will come out this end and then go into the model stage, and the other 50% will go off to the annotate stage to be manually edited by a human being if you want that. And if you click the sampling stage, you can actually edit the probabilities for how the sampling happens. So you can have it be like a 20-80 split if you want to. So 20% will go to A, which is the model, and 80% will go to the human annotation stage. So just as a review, okay, we have a data set, the new files go into that data set. And then once we move it to the next stage, it'll go to the sampling stage where it's split into sample A and sample B. Sample A will go to the model to be automatically labeled if possible. Sample B will go to the annotate stage to be manually annotated by a human being. And then once the model and the human are done, anything that they do is going to be sent to the review stage to always be reviewed, because we don't want anything to be completed that is not actually good data. And so if it's accepted, it'll go to the complete stage at the end here. And then if it's rejected, it'll go back to the annotate stage to be reviewed by a human. Pretty cool stuff, right? So that's just another way you can sort of customize your workflow to make it even more awesome, I guess you could say. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this sampling stage though and just have it use the model. So everything is going to go straight to the model. And then like before, it's going to be reviewed. If it's rejected, it'll be manually annotated at that point, okay? So let's go ahead and save and apply. And let's see if the model that we have now is able to automatically label stuff that we send into our data set. I'm going to try this image here. I have it on my computer. So I'm going to drag and drop, upload one file. And now I'm going to take this image, open it up. I'm going to send it to the model. Boop, so that's the next stage. And now the model should hopefully annotate all the players in this image. I know this is actually not real. This is a game, but it looks pretty accurate compared to real life, I would say, at this point. All right, so now if we look here, we can see that our file that we sent to the model a second ago is now in the review stage. So that means that the model has done its job and sent it to the next stage. So we're going to open this up. Looks like all the players in the field are labeled pretty well. We got these players here. We got these overlapping players, which is perfect that it's able to even figure that out. Some more overlapping here. Got this guy running, pretty cool. And then we have two problems here, just two mistakes by the model. First of all, we have this, whatever this thing here on the side is, that's being labeled as a person when it's definitely not a person. And then we have this guy on the side here that's a human being for sure. It is a person, but we only want our model to detect stuff on the field. But that's okay, these types of mistakes are sort of expected because, you know, the model's not perfect. So what we can do now is, since we're in the review stage, we can reject it. So we have mark as complete, and then we have here, which is reject. So let's click reject, which is going to send it back to our annotate stage because of the way that we set up our workflow. And now we're in the annotate stage automatically, so we can go ahead and annotate this and make our corrections. So first of all, let's go ahead and delete these two things here. And you can make some corrections after that to these polygons to make them more precise, like right here. But once you're done with that, you can send it back to review, and then you can go back and review it again. And then if you want to, you can just go ahead and directly send it to the complete stage, because now it's complete. And there we go. So that's our modified workflow using our new model stage that uses the model that we just trained. So pretty cool. We've come pretty much full circle now at this point. All right, so that's it for this episode and it for this little 3-part mini series. Hopefully you learned a lot. I showed you how to do a bunch of different things all within V7, including building a dataset, uploading images and files to that dataset, creating a class, a polygon class that represents our person or our player for that dataset, and then annotating using the really powerful and cool tools provided by V7. And then also I showed you how to build a workflow, how to manage that workflow, how to customize it into whatever way that you want it to be. And then I showed you guys how to import a lot more data using the Darwin CLI. So you can bring in as much data as you want, bring in those annotations as well too. And then finally, we trained the model. So we trained an instance segmentation model that is able to do what you see on the screen here. It's able to segment all the players within a soccer match, or all the players on the field at least. And we tested it out after, and it did a pretty good job. And then I showed you how to test that model out and how to integrate it back into your workflow so that throughout the annotation process, as you're building an even larger data set, you can use the model that you trained to actually improve the model, because it's going to help you annotate along the way. So hopefully you learned a lot in this little mini series. I enjoyed making it. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to say, then leave a comment below. I do read all the comments. Obviously, I'm a big fan of V7, and their tool has helped us throughout this entire process. So make sure you check it out. There's a link for that in the description below. I want to take a second to also thank all the members on my channel. If you see yourself on the screen right now, I really appreciate you for watching my videos and becoming a member. I really appreciate your support. If you want to become a member yourself though, you can join for at least 99 cents a month, and you get some cool perks like a cool rank on my Discord server. You get yourself on the screen like you see right now, and you also get early access to new videos. So if that sounds good to you, feel free to join. If not, it's okay. I really do appreciate you watching my videos anyway. And that's all I got. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you need to see more, subscribe, and peace.